guys, welcome back to more relationship stories. In this video, my ridiculous mother-in-law shot me because she needed money for a new car and I did not want to fund her lifestyle. Here is what happened. Let's dive right into the video. And the first one starts like this. This happened a couple of years ago when my wife and I were moving out of our previous apartment. So moving day comes and the landlord shows up and we walk through the whole apartment with him to hand it over. Even though he has some minor complaints, in the end he agrees to refund the deposit in full and we part on good terms. A couple of days pass and we get a long angry voicemail claiming he was renovating and he noticed that the room that was my former office smells extremely bad, claiming our cats would have urinated in there repeatedly and we would need to come back and renovate the room ourselves, or otherwise he would get a health inspector, contractors, etc. all on our dime to fix it. And he means tearing down the wallpapers, replacing the wood flooring, painting the walls, etc. My wife and I are dumbfounded. Yes, we do have cats, so we do not dismiss it outright, but we realize that this is basically impossible, as I use the room every day and we had the apartment professionally cleaned before handing it back, and there's just no way that what he's describing was there when we left. Maybe it was a raccoon that got in during the days the apartment was empty or whatever, but it was not our fault either way. So we call him to let him know that we won't cover it, and he gets really nasty, making all kinds of claims about the state of the apartment, about how we would twist everything and how he would make sure we would pay for this. After 10 minutes of back and forth, I just hang up on him. Expecting a massive bill to arrive at any point after this left us anxious and really started to mess with our heads during this time. And of course we don't get our deposit back either because of this whole ordeal, and seeing my wife being worried about this all the time, I start to become really angry and dive a little deeper into our options. I discover that where we live, if a landlord does not formally claim a reason for holding back a deposit within 6 months of the end of the lease, they are by law required to refund it. So I figure that revenge is a dish best served cold and we just need to wait it out for another 3 months or so, and after that it's our turn. I calculate the exact date when the 6 months have passed and one day later just message him to please refund the deposit within 2 weeks. He just replies, "Yeah, sure buddy." So we wait, no money comes, and then we send a formal letter setting a second deadline. Again, nothing happens. I was actually hoping for that at this point, so we hire an attorney and let her collect the money on our behalf. The landlord starts claiming all kinds of ridiculous damages, which would let him keep the deposit, which the attorney simply dismisses as the time for claims has passed. Then, for some reason, he pays only 80% or so of the amount due, so the attorney has to get it at it again to get the full amount. Apparently, he is not realizing that all this is incurring hourly costs for the attorney, which he also has to pay as he is legally liable to a refund. So in the end he pays the full deposit, interest and a massive bill for our lawyer, far higher than the deposit. Needless to say, we are very happy with the outcome. Once everything is settled, my wife and I just sat in our new home's garden, had a glass of wine and burned the old rental agreement while planning how to spend the deposit. And yeah, ripe stars, that is exactly how you get revenge on an awful landlord. Have you ever had to deal with any nightmare landlords? I would love to hear your story either in the comments or you can send it to me via email. Please refer to my business email on my About page on YouTube. Either way, the next one is the title story, which is titled "Insane Mother-in-Law Karen Tries to Murder Me and Shoots at Me." And by the way, sorry for the barking dogs in the background, my neighbor, as usual, don't take care of their dogs properly. Anyway, I recently had the privilege of marrying my best friend after dating for 3 years. She is the love of my life and I cannot wait to spend the rest of my life with her. Her mother, Karen, is someone that can be a bit difficult at times, but she never caused issues that had me second-guessing my relationship with my wife. I know she had issues with money in the past, but other than that, I don't think there was anything that made me think she was capable of the things she did. I had just gotten home from work probably 3 months after the wedding when I heard a knock on the front door. I was not expecting anyone since it was later in the day, so it was a surprise when Karen stood on my doorstep. She looked a bit nervous. "Hey," I said, "I didn't know you were coming over." "Is everything alright?" "It will be," she replied, giving me an expectant look. "There was something I wanted to discuss with you. I heard that you just got a promotion and I was wondering if you could lend me some money." I remember I had to stop myself from sighing. Karen was notorious for asking for a loan and taking ages to pay it back. She was right, I did get a promotion at work, but my salary was not changing overnight. I decided to be the better person and ask how much she needed. "Oh, just $10,000. My jaw dropped. "Out of the question," I told her. "That's not an amount I can give you right now." Karen did not like my answer. She told me that she was attempting to buy a new car and needed that amount for the down payment. I really was not comfortable giving her that much and did try to convince her that I could spare maybe $2,000 or $3,000 if it was something she really needed. "I need the 10, she said, her face red with anger. "Don't you get it? I cannot buy a car with just $2,000. I tell her again that I cannot give her that amount, and after a few more minutes of her trying to convince me, she lets out a huff and leaves. When my wife gets home, I tell her about the encounter and how I don't think we should even offer to give her money anymore if she's going to keep asking for exorbitant amounts. My wife agreed and called her mother to tell her just that. I thought it would be enough to sell things. Things were quiet until the end of the week when there was another knock on my door. Just as I was putting away my work computer, I opened the door to see my mother-in-law scowling at me. She had one hand behind her back, the other was poised to knock on the door again. "So, you won't give me any more money?" she asked. I knew that this confrontation was going to revolve around what my wife told her. "Yes," I said, "we're not going to give you any more money. We're done with that." Karen took her hand from behind her back and lifted a revolver at my chest. I raise my hands and take a step into the house, trying to discern if she was just using the gun as a threat or if it was loaded. She followed me in and started to scream about how she needed the money more than I or my wife did and that we were selfish for not sharing our wealth with her. I told her that we could work something out, see if there was another amount that she wanted that I could pay her. "It's 10,000 or nothing," she told me, aiming the gun lower towards my stomach. I quickly moved to one side towards the counter with my cell phone on it, and I hear the gun go off. I hit the ground, but I did not feel any pain. I scrambled to grab my phone and start dialing the police when another shot goes off. That time my foot felt like it was on fire and my mother-in-law dropped the gun. I got connected to the police and told them what happened. The police wasted no time and were able to arrest Karen as she fled the scene. My wife got home from work as they were putting me in an ambulance and she followed me to the hospital. Thankfully, the bullet went straight through my toe and did not nick anything that would not allow me to walk again. I would need to get surgery and would walk with crutches to keep my weight off of my foot while it healed. But the doctors told me I was extremely lucky that was all it was. My mother-in-law was detained because of her actions and the police came to my hospital to make sure that I wanted to press charges. I told them I did and they explained that they arrested her because of the assault with a deadly weapon and trespassing since she entered my home while holding me at gunpoint. They asked my permission to question the neighbors just to make sure that witness statements were gathered and they had all the evidence they could find before a trial. As I recovered, I was kept informed about how the charges were piling up. Attempted murder was added to the list along with premeditation as my mother-in-law purchased a gun an hour before she came to my house. My neighbors told the police about what they had seen, revealing that Karen had attempted to hide from the police before she was arrested. The evidence was piling up and the thing that made it clear what she was trying to do ended up coming from her own mouth. The trial finally came and all of the evidence that the police had gathered was presented to the jury. They got to see the wounds she gave me, the other bullet that was lodged in our counter when she missed shooting me the first time, the testimonies from the witnesses that had seen her enter my home and after hearing the shots watched her run out and try to duck behind a neighbor's bush to hide from the police. While on the stand and questioned by the lawyer I hired, my mother-in-law explained that I had pitted my wife against her. The phone call that my wife had with Karen was what set this entire situation off, and she told the jury just how angry she was. "Can you blame me for being so angry?" she asked. "That my own daughter wanted to cut me off. I wanted to teach her husband a lesson so that he would never manipulate her against her own mother ever again." That was more than enough for the jury to find her guilty. With the charges of attempted murder that already carried a large prison sentence, the intention and premeditation tacked on a few more years. In the end, she was sentenced to 15 years in prison, only having the chance for parole after 10. She was also forbidden to contact myself or my wife ever again, and if ever found in violation of the ruling, she would have another charge of harassment added to her sentence. It has been over a year since the trial. My foot is now all healed up and my wife and I have never been happier. I'm forever grateful for the justice system that allowed me and my wife to have peace of mind knowing that Karen can never contact us again. We are safe and that is all that matters. And the next one is titled, How My Grandma Got Ramps Installed in Our Fair City. Posted by user artfuldodger1431 on r/ripe stories, which is our own subreddit where you can share your personal stories, which I might read in a video if you wish. So, my grandma was no saint. She was a strict Catholic, yet she cursed so much and so badly she'd make a sailor blush. So my mom's mom, a lady in her late 80s at the time, found herself with a problem. The small city we live in had little to no ramps on the corners of our sidewalks. It's an issue if you are using a wheelchair, using a walker, or riding on a scooter. For Grandma, earlier in that year, she had tripped on a sidewalk and had bruised herself. No, she didn't decide to sue the city. The only places these ramps could be found were in areas of newer construction or areas of higher commerce traffic, as in shopping centers and the mall. Grandma decides to take her complaints to City Hall. First she tried the Roads and Sidewalks department. They redirected her to take it a level higher. City Hall kept her on the move, going from an office/department to another, until finally getting to the mayor's office. She was told the mayor only had a few minutes for her complaints. Grandma only got 2 words out before the man just shook her hands and said, "Vote for me." He then signaled his secretary. His secretary tells her speak with the city council, as she should have in the first place. Grandma went to the city council meeting and waited. The city council got to the Q&A portion. Grandma raises her hand. They asked Grandma to wait for the new business. When the new business portion came up, as my grandma was hobbling to the podium with her hand raised, city councilman said, "I see there's no new business, we will conclude the meeting." Grandma was very angry and so waited a whole month until they met again. But she did not sit idly by. She wrote letters daily to the city council and then Xerox, a copy machine, the letters and sent them to the individual council members. When the next city council meeting arrives, Grandma sets out early, arrives early, gets a chair in the front and steps forward long in advance before they started calling for new business. City councilman, how may we help you, ma'am? Grandma, yes, I've been writing you daily about putting in ramps for our sidewalks. I was hoping to start a discussion on this floor in hopes you may. City councilman interrupts, ma'am, we are already looking into the budget for making that happen. We just hope you can be patient. Grandma thought she had gotten through to them, so during the next city council meeting, she brought it up again and again, but the same answer. Grandma decides to check with their offices. She places 2 calls to the city. After hours on hold, she gets redirected to the Department of Roads and Sidewalks. She was annoyed to hear at the end of that call, "Budget for ramps? What budget for ramps? No one's working on that at the moment. We were never asked about that possibility." Grandma is now enraged, so Grandma begins a daily trip downtown. That is 3 buses and a few long walks essentially. Since they were ignoring her letters and not taking her serious at the meetings, she will see them personally. So then Grandma starts her long 4-year campaign. Each day outside of holidays, bank holidays and days they are closed, she would be at City Hall and the outside their offices ready to ambush them. She used her walker and chased them down the hall. They would give her the, "Ma'am, we are doing our best to accommodate you and the city just doesn't have," and then disappear into their offices before finishing the sentence. Grandma doubled her efforts in the first year. During one of the more prominent and news-covered city council meetings, she brings up the ramps again. This got the media to shine a light on Grandma for a few minutes. The city councilmen nervously look at one another. And finally, the city puts ramps on our main street. Little did the city council know, the shiny new ramps made it easier for Grandma to get downtown. Armed with her mobility scooter and bus fare, Grandma continued the same campaign for the next 2 years. In 2 years, she got to know the city staffers and the same police officer who would be asked to escort her off city property. Each time, Grandma would say, "Grandma, hello Officer Garcia, are you here to escort me off?" Police, "Yes ma'am." Grandma, "Well, how are the kids?" The police officer would help her off the property like a gentleman. She basically got to know everyone in City Hall, including the same police officer they used every time. The staffers would call her the nice ramp lady. During city council meetings, you could see the councilman trying to forbid her to bring up the ramps again, but she would beat them to the punch each time. She brings up the subject and you could see the councilmen falling apart in their chairs, the dread on their faces, life drained from their bodies. Grandma had to stop after 4 years due to her health starting to go down. Grandma unfortunately never saw the fruition as she passed in 2006 of her good work, but eventually the city finally broke down and made a yearly budget to convert a few sidewalk corners into ramps per year. The state passed a law 10 years later setting aside funds to do the very same thing, allowing our city to convert more corners per year. And well, Ripe Stars, I gotta say, rest in peace this grandma, she was absolutely legendary. And thank you so much for your amazing efforts. You will be remembered. The next one is another malicious compliance story. About 5 or 6 years ago, I built a fence in my backyard. I talked to my neighbors and we decided on a good place to build the fence. We knew an approximate property line based on some survey pins, but we were both too cheap to pay for a surveyor. We shook hands and I built the fence. It was a great deal for my neighbors because I paid for everything, built the fence, and all they had to do was give me a thumbs up when it was done. Then, a year later, they sold their house. That meant I got a new neighbor, more specifically, I got Anne. Anne was from the big city and was a realtor. Anne had flipped 8 houses in 12 years. Also, Anne loved this new house and planned on staying for a long time, and Anne had a dog. Razzie was a German Shepherd mix that spent most of the day outside while Anne went to work. Razzie was aggressive towards children, animals, insects, and any plants that waved in the breeze. Razzie also, as Anne once told me, loved to chew on furniture. That is why Razzie stayed outside so much. About 6 months after Anne moved in, I saw a surveyor walking around in my neighborhood and he was paying special attention to my backyard. The next day, Anne showed up at my front door with a stack of papers asking me if I was gonna pay her for the 9 inches that my fence was encroaching onto her property. I explained the handshake deal with the last neighbors, but she was having no part of it. She wanted the fence moved or she wanted money, no discussions. She had spoken to her lawyer friend and was perfectly happy to take me to court over this fence. She told me, I don't know how you guys do it out here in the sticks, but where I come from, we follow the rules. So then I got rid of the fence. The next day I unscrewed the horizontal rails from the brackets, stacked the fence panels up against my garage and pulled up the fence posts with my work van. About a week later, Anne shows up at my front door again. She wants to know when I'm going to be building a new fence. And well, it turns out without my portion of the fence, she has not been able to let Razzie out unattended for fear that he will run away, attack something, or get hit by a car. She also told me she cannot keep him in the house all day while she is at work anymore. Her furniture and carpet are all but ruined. I told her, well, Anne, I'm not going to be rebuilding the fence. I don't want any legal trouble, and the best way to stay out of trouble is to not build near your property. The look on her face was priceless. I thought she was going to cry. She probably did when she got back home. She tried to protest, saying that she really needed the fence back and she would even help pay for the new one. She told me how much she loved the style and aesthetic of the old one. It was just a location that she had a problem with. I stood firm, there would be no new fence. She never got a fence. She made half-hearted attempts to put up some bamboo fencing, but Razzie tore through that stuff like wet newspaper. Eventually, I sold my place and moved away. I took the old fence panels with me, and I still look at them every day when I let my dog out in the morning. And the next one is a landscaper revenge story. So my neighbor directly across the street has his yard serviced every Wednesday morning around 7:30, right at the time I'm leaving to drop off my kid at daycare and drive to work. I have had to get out of my car, go find the guy in the yard across the street and have him move his truck so I can leave now at least 4 times since April. I decided that I was done with this dance and decided to park my wife's car on the street where the landscaper parks his truck on Tuesday nights, so come Wednesday morning he would not be able to block my driveway. We also live on a street that you can only park on one side of, and the police here ticket very quickly if they see you are parked on the wrong side. I also have a fire hydrant in front of my house, and my neighbor to the north of me parks his truck on the street, so with all that, the landscaper and his big-ass truck and trailer now need to park over a block away and bring all his equipment with him in multiple trips. A comment said, our neighbor's lawn guy parked right across our driveway once. I came home and asked him to move, and he told me I could street park, so I told him I will gladly street park and wait to watch the tow truck haul him off. He quickly moved and never blocked our driveway again. People behave this way because they count on others avoiding a confrontation. Comment number 2, I'm a mailman and these guys are the worst. They drive the biggest trucks they can find, pulling trailers the size of mobile homes, and they act like they own the streets and block boxes. Navigating around those monstrosities is one of the reasons I hate spring and summer. Kudos for fighting back against those a-holes. Comment number 3, I had to ask the people who do the fourplex next door to not block my driveway with their landscaping trucks. I would have to chase them down and wave my arms and yell because they were wearing headphones to protect their ears. So annoying. They were also real jerks about it, so finally I called the company that owned the rental units and told them that I would call the cops every single time if they didn't deal with it. And well, they dealt with it. And yeah guys, if you cannot get enough of my content, please don't forget to check out my podcast by searching for Ripe Stories on all major podcast platforms such as Spotify, Apple or Google Podcasts. Furthermore, you can find bonus content by going to patreon.com/ripeyoutube or by clicking the join button here on YouTube. For a small monthly fee, you will get access to dozens and dozens of exclusive videos you won't find anywhere else. Thank you so much for watching and I hope to see you again tomorrow.